is Nick Joke, and this is W5J. Today, we will be discussing ancient civilizations. Have you ever wondered what the origin of civilization is? Or how did we get from early hunters and gatherers to the first settlements and civilizations? Wonder no more, because those are just the questions that we will be asking on today's episode of W5J, where we ask the really important questions of who, what, where, when, and why. Let's start with who. Who were the Mesopotamians? They were the people who settled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers and eventually built the first societies and civilizations. The most important contributions to Mesopotamia came from a people called the Sumerians. Now let's consider the where. Mesopotamia means land between two rivers, which is obviously referring to this patch of land right here between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Mesopotamia is also between the Mediterranean Sea and the Persian Gulf, as well as being on the Fertile Crescent, a crescent of fertile soil. The when of Mesopotamia is a little harder to pinpoint, but people have settled there as far back as 10,000 years ago. By around 8,000 years ago, those people had started farming. And by 5,000 years ago, there were the first towns and cities emerging. To help you understand, let's see how this looks on a timeline. We are here, 2014 Common Era. While the Mesopotamians were settled a long time ago, they only started thriving around here, 3,500 before Common Era. They thrived and developed until about 330 before Common Era, when they were finally conquered by Alexander the Great. Now for the what, the real meat and potatoes of the show. For today's what, we will be focusing on food and farming of the Mesopotamians. To help us out with this, we're going to ask our exemplary professor, Dr. Eric McSeeker. Hello, I'm Dr. McSeeker, and I'm here to tell you guys about food and farming in Mesopotamia. As you all know, food and farming is at the heart of humanity. Without food and farming, we'd still be hunters and gatherers. It wasn't until we started to farm that we could come together and create other jobs for other people and move on as a civilization. So, you might be wondering, what did the Mesopotamians eat to make them so successful? Well, they ate a very varied and healthy diet, which included chickpeas, beans, lentils, cress, onions, cucumbers, and even some more. Not to mention they had a crazy thing for plums, which could be turned into prunes, pressed into a juice, eaten fresh, or preserved to be eaten at a later date. In addition to all those healthy fruits and vegetables, the Mesopotamians also ate a lot of grains and meat. The grains were mainly barley and wheat because they could be made into bread, porridge, and beer. All three were extremely important. The meats were fish, a not-so-rare delicacy, very good, goat, which was good, mutton, which was better, and cattle, which was so-so because it was considered untender, untasty, and more use alive than it was dead. Now that we know what they ate, let's see if we can find out how they got it. Well, it really was amazing, as they used irrigation trenches or dikes, which the water would flow down and into the crops. They used 3 different plows. One was a stone shoe, which simply broke up the earth for seeds to be planted in back here. One was a metal funnel, which did basically the same thing. And one was a cedar plow, which is kind of like the stone shoe, only made of wood, and it had a funnel up here, and as it went down, you'd put seeds down the funnel, and you'd put them directly into the little trench, so that, nothing's wasted. Incredibly efficient, if you ask me. And maybe the main reason why the Mesopotamians were so successful. Here we see an illustration of what Mesopotamian systems of irrigation probably looked like. Water from the river was poured into ditches which flowed directly to the crops. A village on the river probably looked something like this. This picture of the Tigris River shows exactly how much people still rely on irrigation today. This drawing of an ancient seeder or seed plow shows how farmers could dig a trench and plant seeds at the same time. This would have made farming much more efficient and increased the overall production of crops. With the creation of a food surplus, Mesopotamians were able to spend time on other jobs and innovations. Last but not least, the why. Why does all this matter? Well, if not for agriculture, we would all still be hunters and gatherers. Because of agriculture, it allowed us to stay in one place and live in villages, towns, and eventually cities, which became part of civilization. Some Mesopotamian towns had as many as 30 to 40,000 people, and all of them had enough to eat. And since a few people could make enough food for many people, this allowed those other peoples to do things like crafting, like pottery or jewelry making, or take on other roles, like being a leader or a priest. Also, food production had to be recorded, and so this led to a written form of communications and record keeping, which later evolved into writing. Finally, food was important because it played a big role in ceremonies and banquets, as well as made people want to understand the seasons and the nature around them. Pretty much an essential part of people's everyday lives. And so the next time you sit down to have a yummalicious meal, think about your food, where it came from, and how important it is in the history of humankind. This is W5J. Thank you for watching.